It's May 1945, and Berlin is a flaming carcass. The Third Reich is eating itself alive. Russians storming from one end, Allied bombers flattening the rest. In an underground bunker reeking of sweat, cyanide, and stale cigar smoke, Adolf Hitler pulls the trigger. His newlywed wife, Eva Braun, takes poison. Their bodies are burned in a shallow grave as the Red Army closes in. But this isn't about them. This is about the man slipping away through the smoke and rubble, clutching a leather satchel filled with secrets, Hitler's final testament, and enough damning information to rewrite the future. Martin Bormann, Hitler's right hand, a shadow, and a gatekeeper, the most powerful man no one ever talks about. And the thing about monsters is, they don't always die when the kingdom burns down. Martin Bormann was never supposed to be anyone. Born in 1900, a year that felt like the world exhaling before the chaos of the 20th century, he was the son of a postal worker. No lineage, no title, just an ambitious kid with an instinct for survival. He fought in World War I, not particularly brave and not particularly remarkable, but after the war, when Germany was choking on humiliation and economic ruin, Bormann saw opportunity. He joined the Freikorps, a paramilitary group full of angry young men with raised fists and swastikas. Violence became his asset, loyalty, his currency. It was in this cauldron of post-war resentment that Bormann began his slow, careful climb. He wasn't charismatic like Goebbels. He wasn't terrifying like Himmler, but Bormann had something else. He knew how to make himself indispensable to powerful men. In 1933, the Nazis took power, and Bormann, he slid into place, like a cockroach finding a crack in the kitchen tile. The thing about power is that it rarely sits in one chair. By the time Martin Bormann became Hitler's private secretary in 1943, he wasn't just managing schedules and taking notes. He was more. He became a gatekeeper. If you wanted to talk to Hitler, you talked to Bormann. If you wanted to see Hitler, you saw Bormann first. And if you wanted a favor, well, now you owed Bormann a favor. He controlled the flow of information in and out of Hitler's quarters. Whispers became policy and rumors became executions. While other Nazi officials strutted in uniforms festooned with medals, Bormann operated from the shadows, with a pen, a typewriter, and a ledger. He siphoned wealth from occupied territories, brokered backroom deals, and ensured that every scrap of information reached Hitler exactly how he wanted it. Bormann became more than a secretary. He became the architect of the empire, the unseen hand guiding the Third Reich. But shadows grow long when the sun sets, and within 2 years, the sun was plunging into darkness. Berlin, April 1945. The walls are shaking. The air tastes like smoke and fear. Hitler is a broken man, trembling in his bunker, shuffling maps of cities that no longer exist. Outside, Soviet artillery reduces blocks to ash. Inside, people are drinking, weeping, waiting. It's in these final, desperate days that Hitler dictates his political testament. A final will, a final tantrum, and Martin Bormann is right there, scribbling every word like a priest taking confession. The testament names Bormann as the executor of Hitler's political corpse, the keeper of secrets, the last custodian of the Reich. But the thing about being the last man holding the keys to the empire, you can do whatever you want. You can even go against the Führer's orders, and no one will ever know. When Hitler pulls the trigger on April 30th, the bunker becomes a death trap. The war is lost. Soon Goebbels follows suit, killing his wife and 6 children before turning the gun on himself. Himmler gets captured. Generals surrender. Soldiers flee. But Bormann vanishes. Eyewitnesses say he escaped the bunker on May 1st with SS officer Ludwig Stumpfegger. They emerged into the hellscape of Berlin, bombs falling, fire raining from the sky. At Lerder Station, witnesses claim they saw Bormann blown apart by artillery fire. Others say they saw him alive, slipping into the night like a phantom. Whatever the case, no one ever found his body. At the Nuremberg trials, which were a series of military tribunals held after World War II to prosecute prominent Nazi leaders for their war crimes, Martin Bormann was tried in absentia, an invisible defendant in an empty chair, guilty of crimes against humanity, sentenced to death. But it's hard to hang a ghost. Theories bloomed like mushrooms in the dark. Some said he died that night in Berlin. Others swore he escaped, fleeing to South America, hiding in Argentina or Paraguay, protected by networks of ex-Nazis and sympathetic officials. Theories range from plausible to absurd. Did Bormann die in the rubble of Berlin, unrecognized and buried in a shallow grave? Or did he live out his days in a remote jungle villa, sipping margaritas, thumbing through old Reich documents, and dying peacefully in obscurity? One theory says Bormann was smuggled out by the Vatican ratlines, a covert escape network for high-ranking Nazis. Another claims he joined a secret Nazi enclave in Argentina, where ex-officers built isolated colonies and preserved their warped ideology. There's even a story about Bormann living in a monastery, disguised as a monk, until his death in the 1970s. But truth is a slippery thing. Bodies decay, witnesses die, and time erases evidence like waves washing footprints from sand. Martin Bormann, one of the most powerful men in Hitler's inner circle, simply vanished. History likes closure. It likes bodies, tombstones, final chapters. But Martin Bormann is a scar that never quite healed, a question mark at the end of a horrifying sentence. He reminds us that even the most monstrous men can disappear into thin air, that some shadows are so deeply etched into history that no light can erase them, because sometimes the scariest thing about monsters is that sometimes they win, and they might still be out there, watching, waiting, breathing.